The journey to Makkah had felt like a dream. For years, she had imagined walking through its radiant streets where every stone seemed to carry history and every corner resonated with faith. When she finally arrived with her husband Muiz, her heart overflowed with gratitude. Performing Umrah together was meant to be a milestone in their marriage, a chance to renew their bond and seek blessings for a child. Yet what began as a moment of closeness quickly descended into fear and confusion. After completing their rituals, Muiz suggested they stroll through the marketplace. "Let's buy something for the family before heading back to the hotel," he had said. The idea brought her joy. This would be her first time choosing gifts with her own hands rather than receiving whatever others thought suitable. For someone who had grown up sheltered, where relatives always handled her needs, it was exciting to see a marketplace buzzing with life. The stalls glittered with fabrics, perfumes, prayer beads, and garments. Everything was so beautifully arranged that she became lost in the sights, running her fingers over fabrics, comparing shades of black for a new abaya, thinking about how happy her loved ones would be when she returned with these gifts. But when she turned to show Muiz a garment she liked, he was no longer by her side. At first, she assumed he had wandered a little further, perhaps to another stall. She called out his name lightly, expecting him to appear within moments. But the seconds stretched into minutes, and minutes into hours. Her voice grew louder, desperate, but the sea of white-clad men looked all the same. Every face resembled her husband's at first glance, but when she moved closer, it was always a stranger. Anxiety clutched her chest. She retraced her steps, revisiting every alley and side street they had walked together, but Muiz was nowhere. Her eyes welled up as she realized she was utterly lost, surrounded by strangers, unable to explain herself. The weight of her vulnerability grew heavier with each passing moment. It was her first painful realization of how fragile one could feel in a foreign land, without the language, without familiarity, and without the safety of a guiding hand. By the time she sank down on the edge of the marketplace, her spirit was unraveling. She whispered silent prayers, begging God to reunite her with her husband. Yet, with every unanswered plea, hopelessness crept deeper. What was supposed to be a sacred journey of togetherness had turned into a nightmare of separation, leaving her stranded, frightened, and uncertain of what lay ahead. Time felt endless as she wandered through the busy market, her eyes darting from one face to another, hoping for a glimpse of Muiz. At first, she tried to remain calm, convincing herself that he must be close by. But as the minutes turned into hours, panic settled deep in her chest. She realized she was alone in a foreign country, surrounded by people who neither understood her language nor her desperate calls. Every attempt to speak with the locals ended in frustration. They responded in Arabic, and their words blurred together into sounds she could not comprehend. Her inability to communicate heightened her sense of helplessness. The crowd that had once seemed vibrant now felt suffocating. Everywhere she looked, men in white robes passed by, identical in appearance from a distance. Each time she thought she recognized Muiz, her heart would leap with hope, only to sink again when she discovered it was a stranger. That repeated cycle of hope and disappointment drained her strength. She began to question herself. Had she been careless in letting go of his hand? Had she trusted too easily that he would remain close? In her mind, self-reproach and fear mingled, leaving her on the edge of collapse. Desperation drove her to retrace the very steps they had taken earlier. She tried to recall the exact path from the harem to the shops, focusing on familiar signs or corners, but confusion clouded her memory. She walked the same streets again and again, only to realize she was circling back to the same spot. Her throat ached from calling Muiz's name so many times. Passers-by glanced at her curiously, but none stopped to help. It was then that tears began to flow freely, and she no longer tried to hide them. Her heart pounded with dread as another thought struck her. What if Muiz had returned to the hotel? That possibility rekindled a fragile hope. Perhaps he too was searching for her and would be waiting at the entrance of their lodging. Clinging to this idea, she decided to head back. But soon she realized she had made another mistake. She did not even know the hotel's name. The streets all looked the same, the signs were foreign, and the bustling crowd made her feel even smaller. By now, nearly 3 hours had passed. Exhausted, trembling, and with no sense of direction, she finally sat on the edge of the pavement, her spirit breaking under the weight of despair. She prayed again, asking God to show her a way, but the silence around her was unbearable. In that moment, she understood how truly lost she was, not just in the streets of Makkah, but in the unfolding uncertainty of her life. The night air grew heavier as she sat weeping on the sidewalk. The glow of streetlights did little to ease her fear. She had been wandering for nearly 3 hours, and every passing minute felt like a lifetime. A hollow emptiness spread through her chest as she imagined her husband's face. Was he searching for her too, or had something worse happened? The thought that she might never see him again sent waves of panic through her already fragile heart. Her tears blurred the vibrant lights of the market. Only a short while ago, she had marveled at the beauty of the shops, the neatly arranged stalls, and the joy of finally choosing something herself. Now, the same streets looked like a maze designed to trap her. The voices of merchants calling to customers, the laughter of children, and the footsteps of strangers all sounded distant, as if she were locked inside her own bubble of despair. In that moment of weakness, memories of her past surfaced uninvited. She had always carried the shadow of her disability with her, the limp in her leg reminding her daily that she was different. Even after marriage, she felt its weight. Muiz had never hidden his reluctance. He had opposed their marriage from the very beginning. If not for his mother's insistence, he might never have agreed. At times, he treated her like a burden, his words sharp and cold. For months, she endured his indifference, consoling herself that perhaps time would soften his heart. And it seemed for a while that time had worked. Over the past few weeks, Muiz had begun to change. His tone had softened, his eyes no longer carried the same resentment, and he even suggested this journey of Umrah. "Let's pray together for a child," he had said. For her, those words had been a balm, a sign that their marriage was finally healing. She had clung to that hope with all her strength, believing this sacred journey would mark a new beginning for them. But here she was, alone and abandoned in the very city where she thought her prayers would be answered. The ache in her chest grew unbearable as she imagined the worst. Perhaps Muiz was gone for good. Perhaps she was left to face this trial entirely on her own. With trembling hands, she lifted them in prayer, whispering broken words through her sobs. "Oh God, guide me back to him. Do not let me break like this." Yet even as the words left her lips, doubt gnawed at her. Were miracles only reserved for others? She sat hunched on the cold pavement, her head resting against her knees when a shadow fell across her. Startled, she lifted her tear-streaked face and saw a tall Arab man standing nearby. Unlike the others who had passed without pause, he looked directly at her, his expression curious yet calm. In fluent Urdu, he asked, "Sister, what is the matter? You look troubled. Have you lost your way?" For the first time in hours, relief washed over her. The sound of her own language felt like a lifeline. She quickly explained, her voice quivering between sobs and hurried words. "I was with my husband after Umrah. We came to the market to buy gifts, but in the crowd we became separated. I cannot find him anywhere. I don't even know the name of our hotel." The man listened quietly, nodding occasionally. His eyes studied her from head to toe as though weighing her story. When she finished, he sighed and said, "If you had remembered even the hotel's name, anyone here could have guided you back. Without that, it will be difficult." His words deepened her despair. Tears welled up again as she whispered, "I know, I was careless. I should have paid attention. Now I don't know how to return, and I cannot find my husband." Her voice broke, and she covered her face with trembling hands. The man paused before asking, "That bag on your shoulder, what is inside it? Do you have any papers, anything that might help?" She blinked in surprise, as if noticing the small bag for the first time that evening. In her panic, she had forgotten it was there at all. Her mother had insisted she never let it out of her sight, and inside were her identification documents and a few important belongings. Quickly, she handed it to him. "Please check." "I cannot read properly. Maybe there is something that can help you find my hotel." He opened the bag and carefully sifted through its contents. For a few moments, silence hung between them. Finally, he looked up and said, "There is nothing here about your hotel or your accommodation. But don't worry, I can help you. You can either come with me to my home, where I will check your details more thoroughly, or I can take you to the police station. The choice is yours." The mention of the police sent a chill through her. She had heard unsettling stories about how foreigners were treated, and fear gripped her heart. Alone, exhausted, and frightened of the unknown, she realized she stood at a crossroads. Trust this stranger or face the night alone. The stranger's offer lingered in the air like a test. On one side was the option of going to the police station, a place that she feared deeply. On the other side was the uncertainty of following him to his home, a man she had only just met. She sat frozen for a moment, her heart pounding as she tried to weigh her choices. The streets around her were beginning to empty, the once bustling market slowly falling silent as night spread across the city. The thought of staying alone on the pavement until morning felt unbearable. The man glanced at her hesitation and spoke again, his tone steady. "You cannot stay here all night. What if someone else comes who is less trustworthy? At least I'm offering you options. I cannot force you, but you must decide quickly." His words struck her with a cold truth. She could not deny her vulnerability. Her legs ached terribly from hours of walking, and the limp from her childhood illness made every step heavier. She thought of her husband, her heart burning with both longing and anger. If Muiz were searching for her, wouldn't he have found her by now? The stranger's voice interrupted her spiral of doubt. "It is only one night. In the morning, I will use your documents to find your hotel and reunite you with your husband. Or if you prefer, I will leave you at the police station right now." At the mention of the police again, she felt her stomach tighten. Every story she had ever heard about mistreated travelers flashed through her mind. Alone, without language or protection, how could she survive such an ordeal? Trembling, she looked up at the man and whispered, "I will come with you. But please, only until morning. Promise me you will help me find him." A faint smile crossed his lips. "Of course," he replied. "You will be safe with me. My home is nearby. You can rest there tonight, and tomorrow we will resolve everything." Reluctantly, she rose to her feet. The pain in her legs made her stumble slightly, and he noticed immediately. "Your foot is troubling you," he said gently. "Don't worry. Once we reach home, I will arrange for you to rest properly." She didn't respond, but silently followed him to his car. As she settled into the seat, her heart pounded with dread. She whispered prayers under her breath, asking God to protect her through the night. The car sped through the quiet streets, each turn taking her farther from the market and deeper into the unknown. The drive through the darkened streets felt endless, though in reality it was only a short journey. Her fingers clutched the strap of her bag tightly, as if the weight of it anchored her to safety. Each passing building blurred by as fear and uncertainty clouded her mind. Finally, the car slowed and turned into a grand entrance lined with tall gates. The vehicle rolled into a spacious compound, and when she stepped out, her eyes widened in astonishment. Before her stood a villa so large and striking that for a moment her fear was overshadowed by awe. The walls gleamed under the lights, the garden was meticulously arranged, and the air of wealth was undeniable. "This is my home," the man said casually, noticing her surprise. "You will be comfortable here." She hesitated on the steps, whispering, "You live here alone?" He nodded, his expression softening. "My father is Arab. My mother is Pakistani. She is currently visiting her family in Pakistan. For now, I stay here alone." His explanation startled her, but it also clarified the mystery of how he spoke Urdu so fluently. The mention of his Pakistani mother tugged at her heart, making her feel a little less alien in this foreign place. Inside, the villa was even more breathtaking. The marble floors reflected the chandelier's glow, and the halls were filled with expensive furnishings. She tried not to stare, but couldn't help feeling overwhelmed. It was a world far removed from her own simple life. The man led her to a sitting area and offered her water. His gaze lingered briefly before he asked, almost curiously, "Does your husband love you deeply? Is that why you are so desperate to find him? Or is he perhaps wealthy or handsome, and that is what binds you to him?" His question struck her as odd, almost unsettling. She straightened her back and replied firmly, "Every wife longs for her husband." It has nothing to do with beauty or wealth. Love is not always perfect, but loyalty is what matters. He nodded slowly, as if testing her sincerity. "I see. You are loyal, then." His tone carried a weight she couldn't quite interpret. Before she could question him, he called for a housemaid and instructed her to guide the guest to a bedroom. When she finally lay down on the soft bed, her exhaustion overcame her. The pain in her weakened leg pulsed sharply, a reminder of the miles she had walked that day. Silent tears streamed down her face as she thought of Muiz. Where was he now? Was he searching as desperately for her as she was for him? The questions tore at her heart, but exhaustion eventually pushed her into restless sleep. Lying in the unfamiliar room, she found no peace in the luxury around her. The soft mattress, the embroidered curtains, and the silence of the villa could not quiet the storm raging inside her heart. Her thoughts wandered back to the very beginning, to the painful reality of how her marriage to Muiz had come about. From the start, Muiz had not wanted her. He had resisted the proposal openly, even confronting her family and declaring that he had no desire to marry her. The reason was clear. Her leg, weakened by polio in childhood, left her with a limp that overshadowed every other quality she possessed. She was warm-hearted, educated enough to manage a household, gentle in nature, and pleasant in appearance. But in Muiz's eyes, all of that was eclipsed by her disability. It was her aunt, Muiz's mother, who had insisted on the marriage. Out of pity and loyalty, she pressured her son until he gave in. She feared that if time slipped away, her niece would never marry. When Muiz resisted, she went as far as threatening her own life, and at last, cornered by guilt and duty, he agreed. The bride herself had no choice. She bowed to the elder's decision and accepted the match, though in her heart she knew her groom's reluctance. Their early months of marriage were cold and painful. Muiz spoke little, and when he did, his words often carried bitterness. He reminded her of her shortcomings more than her strengths. She endured it all silently, telling herself that patience was her only weapon. The walls of their home seemed to echo with distance rather than companionship. But recently, something had shifted. 2 weeks before their journey, Muiz's tone began to soften. He no longer snapped as quickly, and sometimes his gaze held less resentment. Then one day, he said something that lit a fragile spark of hope. "You long for a child, don't you? Let's go to Makkah and pray for it together." Those words felt like sunlight breaking through dark clouds. She clung to them, believing that perhaps God was healing their bond. She had traveled with him to the sacred land carrying dreams of closeness, forgiveness, and the miracle of becoming parents. Now, stranded in a stranger's home, those dreams felt like cruel illusions. Her heart ached as she realized how fragile her happiness had been. Was Muiz truly changing, or had she simply been fooling herself all along? The silence of the villa was heavy that night, broken only by the faint hum of the air conditioner. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind trapped between fear and exhaustion. Suddenly, the door creaked open. The stranger, whose name she had learned was Turab, stepped inside quietly. His face was calm, but his eyes held a seriousness that immediately unsettled her. He pulled a chair closer and sat down, speaking in a measured voice. "There is something you must hear, but you must have courage. What I am about to tell you will hurt, yet it is the truth." Her chest tightened. "Is it about my husband? Has something happened to him?" Turab hesitated for a moment before answering. "When you handed me your bag earlier, I found more than just your identification. Among your papers was a folded letter. It was written by Muiz." Ha paused, watching her reaction. That letter was a divorce. The words hit her like a storm. She felt her breath catch in her throat, her body frozen, as if the ground had slipped beneath her. "No," she whispered, shaking her head violently. "That cannot be true. He was with me only hours ago. He prayed with me. He spoke of children." "You are mistaken," Turab's expression remained firm. "I wish it were a mistake. But I confirmed it. After leaving you in the marketplace, Muiz boarded a flight back home. He planned it all, bringing you here, ensuring you were lost in the crowd, and then abandoning you. He did not want to face the shame of divorcing you in his own community. He wanted to leave you behind in a foreign land, unseen, unheard." Her heart felt as though it was tearing apart. The 2 months of slight kindness, the words about a child, the journey to the holy city, all of it now looked like a cruel performance. Tears blurred her vision, streaming down her cheeks. "So he never meant to pray with me. He never meant to change," she cried softly, clutching her chest as though it would stop the pain. Turab leaned forward, his voice gentle yet firm. "I understand this is unbearable. But you must accept reality. He saw only your weakness, not your worth. You were more loyal than he deserved. Do not waste your tears on a man who could not see the treasure he had. His words should have brought comfort, yet all she felt was devastation. The man she trusted, the partner she thought was finally opening his heart, had deceived her so thoroughly. In that moment, her world collapsed. Her sobs echoed in the room, her body trembling as though every nerve was unraveling. The betrayal felt too immense to carry. She had given her heart, her loyalty, her prayers to Muiz, only to be discarded in a foreign land like she was nothing. For a while, she could barely hear Turab's voice, but then his words began to reach her. "Do not think your life ends here," he said quietly. "Yes, he abandoned you, but that says more about him than about you. A man who cannot honor loyalty does not deserve to be honored." She wiped her tears with shaking hands. "But what will I do now? My family will ask questions. How can I face them? And how can I live with this wound?" Turab's gaze softened. "First, you will return home safely. I will arrange your flight in the morning. Second, you must understand this pain is not the end of your story. It may be the beginning of something new. You are stronger than you realize. You faced hours of fear and did not lose your dignity." His words carried an unexpected sincerity that unsettled her, but also touched something deep inside. She looked at him carefully. "Why do you even care? You don't know me." Turab leaned back, his voice steady but almost tender. "Because I see in you what your husband failed to see, a woman of patience, loyalty, and courage. I will not lie to you. I want more than to just help you find your way home. When your waiting period ends, I wish for you to consider me. I would be honored to marry someone with your heart." The proposal stunned her. For a moment she stared at him, searching his expression for deceit. But his eyes did not hold mockery or greed. They held quiet determination. She whispered, "How can you say this?" "You know my weakness, the flaw that made Muiz reject me." He shook his head firmly, Bema. "That is no flaw. It is part of you, but it does not define your worth. I am not blind to character, and your character shines brighter than any beauty or wealth. I do not pity you. I respect you." His words left her speechless. She lowered her gaze, unsure of what to feel. Gratitude, fear, hope? All emotions swirled within her. For now, she could only cling to the promise that he would send her home. Tomorrow would bring decisions she could not yet make. Morning arrived with a pale light filtering through the curtains. For her, the night had been long and sleepless, filled with memories that burned like fire. She rose with heavy eyes, her heart still aching from the truth she had learned. When Turab knocked gently at her door, she felt a rush of unease, but his tone was calm. "Your ticket is ready," he said. "You will be on the first flight home. I will take you to the airport myself." Relief washed over her, though the pain did not lessen. She packed her small bag, clutching the items that now felt like fragile remnants of her broken journey. As they drove through the streets, she gazed silently out the window. Each corner of the holy city carried both beauty and sorrow for her, beauty of sacred places, sorrow of the betrayal she had endured there. At the airport, Turab handed her the documents and spoke with quiet assurance. "Go home, heal, and take your time. You owe no one an explanation you are not ready to give. When your waiting period ends, if you remember me, I will still be here. If not, I will still pray for your peace." His words touched her, though she could not bring herself to answer. She thanked him politely and walked toward the gates. Behind her, the man who had been both stranger and rescuer faded into the distance, leaving her to face the future alone. On the plane, as the engines roared to life, tears welled in her eyes once more. She thought of Muiz, how he had chosen deception over courage, cruelty over compassion. She thought of her aunt, the woman who had believed she was securing her niece's happiness by tying her to her son. What would she feel when the truth was revealed? Yet beneath the layers of grief, a fragile strength began to stir. She had been abandoned, but she had not lost herself. She had walked through fear, resisted despair, and held on to her dignity in the face of betrayal. Perhaps that was her victory, even if it came wrapped in sorrow. When the plane touched down in her homeland, she knew the hardest conversations still lay ahead. Her family deserved the truth, even if it broke their hearts. As she stepped out into familiar soil, she whispered a silent prayer that her pain would become her strength, that her dignity would guide her, and that one day, whether alone or with another, she would rebuild her life on her own terms.